everybody. Oh, what a beautiful day it is. We're live. That's always good.
Hey.
Welcome back, Johan. This is Johan here on my right, your left. Johan is our project lead here for our latest expansion, which is coming out somewhere in the next 4 trillion years. So before
Yes.
the heat death of the universe, I would expect.
Probably, depending on when that happens.
Yeah, that's depending on what sort of science you apply to. I think that one of those would be fairly accurate, unless you'd like to go for the big crunch. But it depends on how much black matter and dark energy there is in our galaxy.
Yeah, we should probably not get into that.
No, let's not delve too much into towards like advanced astrophysical
Yes,
shenanigans.
let's instead just say soon-ish, maybe a bit. Something like that.
That sounds good. So let's talk about this game that we have. It's called Crusader Kings. Most people have never seen it before.
No.
And it originally started out, we originally talked about it internally as a simulator. And you were on the project from day one, weren't you? Johan?
Yes,
How
I
did that
was.
actually go on?
Well, it was sort of the first thing I did when I started at Paradox. The very first thing I did was fixing bugs in the Victoria 2 economic system, which was not fun at all.
Well, you did it together with, what was his name? He moved on to C-Tribe, didn't he?
It's a sea tribe.
Yeah, what was his name again? The main economist for Victoria. Or was that you, the main Victoria economist at the time?
I don't... Oh, right. Yeah. That
You know
was,
what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, him.
I know,
Anyway,
yeah.
right, regardless.
I know.
And basically, then time muddled along, and
Yes,
Chris
yes.
King came on towards the project, who has now sadly moved on to other places.
Well, pretty much everyone except me has moved on to other places at this point.
Yeah, pretty much, and it's very exciting to see that how the project has been evolving over the last 2 years. And I know you guys at home have started out as small counts in Normandy, I guess, and then eventually over time turn into Rajas of India. However,
I think at this point they've probably played every count everywhere.
Pretty much, yeah.
And become every king and emperor of everywhere.
It's like Kumania and Kumania and
Yeah,
Kumania
and Kumania.
and
as
Kumania
well.
as well. Yeah, absolutely. So those things are absolutely there. However, over time, the game kind of sort of mutated into, rather than a dynasty simulator, into more of a medieval soap opera. If anything else, I think the description has been made.
I think it sort of was that to begin with. To be
Really?
perfectly honest, yeah.
Hmm.
It was maybe not as obvious, and maybe people didn't play it that way. But I think
I certainly did.
yeah, I think internally we always knew that these weird stories and shit that sort of came out of this was going to eventually, because you can murder your son and marry his wife, so obviously this sort of thing is going to happen.
It's exactly like a classic Spanish soap opera, which generally starts off as Maria, Fernando, ¿por qué?
Exactly. I don't know.
You don't know that reference?
No.
That's
no,
fine. That's
no.
fine. Anyway,
I don't watch Spanish.
that's
soap
fine. That's
operas.
fine. Before we start off, though, people are asking about the nudge button. What is the nudge button?
Yeah,
do?
the nudge button. This is a debug build, and our debug builds have a tool called the nudge, which helps us to move locations on the map. Because when you're doing map work, when you're placing provinces, and when you're placing out sort of where towns go and all that stuff.
Basically, it's to move physical objects over the map.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Because if you want to do that in like a text file and just set numbers, that would take forever.
Oh, the only person in the company that does that specifically is Don, but it's mostly because he's a sadomasochist, which is
Yeah.
He does like nudging his stuff around in text files, but he does the same thing with color as well. Like recently, he rechanged the color of Germany from hard iron steel to like blue, and people were like, "What's going on here?" But more about that at some other date. Let's go here in our expansion. We have the last time we moved the start date of the game was in Old Gods, where
Yes.
we moved from the original start date, which was in 1066, to 867. And what are we doing now?
Well, we're kind of doing, I wouldn't say the same thing, but the same thing. Really,
We're pulling
it back another 100 years.
The curtain is going a little bit higher this time around, and we're
Yeah.
moving towards what's called as the early medieval period, really.
Yeah.
The start of feudalism.
Yeah, I mean this era is it goes by many names. So yeah, I'd say early medieval era, something like
Sounds
that.
good. That sounds good.
Yeah.
So let's go into the game. We have it in front of us right now, actually, and you guys at home as well. And you will see us in the bottom of the screen. The reason why we're at the bottom of the screen, kind of. Exactly. Yeah, you will see us in the tiny pip is because we'll be on top of the map, but we also want to have some interaction with you guys at home as well, from a camera point of view. Because in the past, it was pretty much just been a gameplay sort of thing with just mouse with a voice from above, so kind of talking. We'll probably end up turning it off in a little bit, but actually, you know what? I'm just going to turn it off right now because.
Wait, can I have you
Yeah,
on?
let's do so because our production today is slightly more ghetto than usual, I'm afraid. So we're gonna turn that off right there. So that's now sorted out. So welcome to Crusader Kings 2.
Finally, I can take my pants off.
I know. I've been.
Right.
I know. We can have those additional characters move into the room now. To do
Yeah,
other things.
yeah.
It's great.
Come on, girls.
Exactly,
Coming
exactly. So we're looking at the map right here, and already at the front of on the menu, we've seen a lot of change going on, specifically when it comes to the terrain. What has changed here?
in. Yeah, you've got snow covering much of Europe.
Yeah, how have you managed that?
Well, we kind of copied it from EU4, basically.
So you basically went to Thomas and said, "Hey, I like what you're doing over here."
Yeah, pretty much. It doesn't look that great currently because EU4 does a lot of stuff that we don't do. So it's gonna change. It's not gonna look quite as much like some kind of I don't
Like
know.
Play-Doh.
Yeah, it's not gonna look quite as much like that, but it's probably not gonna be EU4 though.
I would like to point out, by the way, guys, the fact that Songs of India is available in the shop for us doesn't mean that we're not running it right now. It's just placeholder for this particular
Yeah,
build of the game. so
Probably.
it's always the latest expansion that becomes the placeholder, from what I understand. But anyway, let's go into the
Probably
game.
is.
Anything changed here? I don't think it's just the version. Single player. Let's go in, and oh my God, there we have the first new change already. The
Well, actually,
starting era.
Actually,
menu.
the first new change observant viewers might have seen was that there's a load button in the main menu, which there was not before. But you need to be pretty observant to see that. And the reason for that is that there's no load button in here. So if you want to load a game, you can just load it from there, or you can just go into the regular loading or the regular lobby as usual by clicking the custom game setup button that's down there.
However,
Well, you can do that now if you want to.
Yeah,
Just
but-
show them the wonders of the old lobby.
well, yeah, they probably already know what that actually looks like, but
Probably, yes.
let's not mess around too much with that. But yeah, obviously you have the 5 starting eras of the game if you have pretty much all the expansions. So we have the standard 1066 start opening, which is the start of the Crusades, the Age of the Mongols in 1241. I think that was added fairly late into the game as well. Not entirely sure about the details there.
No, I think that's been in. I think that's always been in. It's just nobody cares about the other bookmarks, which is why one of the reasons why we made this screen to just point out that hey guys, there are actually other starting dates. It's not just.
It's like, oh, by the way,
1066.
guys, you can start in the amazing age of Leet AD.
Yeah, I mean that is pretty amazing.
Yeah, Leet AD was,
Yeah.
you know, it's the age of geek republics, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh.
well, it's the age of a lot of cool stuff, I think.
Indeed, indeed. And then, of course, we have the Viking Age, which is the 867, which old gods start.
Yes.
And if you wouldn't have old gods at this point,
There would
and
be
you've
a
got the
little- Yeah, there would be a little icon pointing out that
Okay.
hey, you don't actually have old gods.
and it would be grayed out as well, the
Yeah.
panel. Okay.
Yes, so
And
you would be
then
able to click on it.
and then we've got the early medieval time, which is 769. Which is the start of today's presentation.
Yes.
So we're actually going to go into that and show what that looks
click
like.
on
So
that.
let's go in there. Oh, that's actually quite pretty. So there's a whole bunch of text that comes in. It's a bit of a text blurb, you know, what's going on,
Yeah.
who, what, where, and how. The Romans are dead. Long live the soon-to-be Holy Romans, I guess. Sometimes, maybe, may not, depending on how you play the game.
Yeah.
And of course, the interesting starting characters of this particular type. So we have 6 interesting starting characters. What is so interesting about these particular guys?
Well, they're interesting. They're interesting characters. They're characters that have a little power, and they're characters that interesting things happen to. I'm not going to go into any detail, partially because I don't actually know all that detail.
Oh, the ones on the 3 on the left are basically
Yeah,
the
the three-
Carlings.
Yeah, the 3 on the left, especially the 2 leftmost, are the most important characters in this particular scenario. Although the others are probably very interesting to play, especially the Muslim guy, because his empire is gigantic.
Oh, the Umayyad, the first
Yeah,
Caliphate.
Yes, so that that is very interesting.
Mhm.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. The first Caliphate is definitely one of the more interesting time periods at this point. I think this was during the Islamic Enlightenment as well. I'm not entirely sure about the details. And then, of course, there's the this guy over here as
Exactly,
well.
that
Yeah,
guy.
this guy over here. But yeah, let's go and select a character. So we go for Charles Carling, better known as Karl the Great. However, right now he's not yet Karl the Great.
No.
He has not brought the Pope forward to crown him and then
No.
take the crown out of his hand, sort of thing.
Exactly.
We can scroll around on the map and all that point
He's
as
just
well.
good old Charles.
He's good old Charles, son of Pippin the Short. Was he really short, you reckon?
He was probably not short. He was probably just called that, but
Yeah.
I'm not actually sure.
And
Usually with these names, they tend to not actually be all that representative of the person in question.
unless you're Charles the Bald.
Well, I guess there are exceptions.
There are exceptions to the rule, of course. And a descendant of Charles Martel, which is a pretty big name in history, to say the least. He was eventually crowned Holy Roman Emperor by Pope Leo III. That's not entirely correct, though. He crowned himself. He took the
Well-
crown out of Leo's hands and put it on his own head, I
Well,
think.
I guess that's
Beatles.
semantics.
Yeah, exactly.
But sure.
So let's go into the game. These are the debug builds, obviously. So in load time will be a little bit shorter than usual. Never mind. As we're actually managed to load in a lot quicker than I expected, really.
Yeah.
So at first here on the map, as you can see, the world is quite different, and there was quite a lot of snow and stuff going on all over the place and that sort of thing. First of all, you can see quite a lot of differences here when it comes to the map, and specifically the diplomatic modes, which we will taking a look at right now.
You'll probably not you'll probably not know what all this stuff is
Mhm.
unless you know a lot about history, because many of these things are countries that did not exist much later than this.
Mhm. Except for possibly Asturias and the Byzantines.
Well, yeah, there's things like that,
Mhm.
of course, and in France in various incarnations. Although at this point, I would not call it France. At this point, it's more
Northumbria.
German than anything else. This is Pictland.
Pictland. What tell us more about Pictland, yo?
Well, it's basically pre-Scotland, before all them British people.
What do you mean before all the Norwegian people arrived?
Well, yeah, them too. So it's a pre-Scotland Pictland, which will eventually at some point turn into Scotland, given the right circumstances,
Mhm.
the right influences by other people.
Mhm, mhm.
So it's either Norsemen or Saxon.
The Saxons, yeah.
that
So
sort
there's
of thing.
this is called Alt Clint.
They have funny
Clut.
names.
Alt Clut. Well, that's not a thing.
It's probably very Celtic.
It's probably very Gaelic indeed. And there's a whole bunch of stuff here. Wales will always be Wales because, you know, Wales will be Wales. Shetland is pretty standard if you play it from the 867 starting point. Although Shetland all of a sudden is part of Norway here,
Yeah.
which is not part of the 867
Yeah,
start.
and Norway basically doesn't exist. There's a lot of it looks slightly similar, but if you actually look at the details, a lot of these bigger sort of entities, I wouldn't call them nations or countries or anything like that, but the bigger entities are different.
Mhm.
Well, you've still got Svitjod, but it's smaller, I think, than
It
anything
is
else.
significantly smaller, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
de
it
jure is like only 3 provinces.
Yeah.
So that's definitely different. And of course we've got Francia, the 2 variants. Okay, for those people that are not entirely aware about what the Franks were all about, why is there 2 kingdoms called Francia?
Well, basically, Charles and his brother Carloman's dad, he was the king
Mhm.
of this kingdom called Francia,
Mm-hmm.
and
How big was this kingdom?
It was pretty big. It was basically both of those two combined,
Mm-hmm.
and he thought it was a great idea to give it to his 2 sons because, you know, they're brothers.
Gavelkind.
So obviously, well, it wasn't really Gavelkind because they were supposed to rule it together as brothers.
Well, like a
you know.
consul sort of, pro-consul
Sort of.
style.
They had this shared kingdom thing where,
Mhm.
where they were supposed to rule it together, you know, as brothers, and that's lovely and great and all that.
Mhm.
And of course, that worked out so well for them. So yeah, they did not really like each other, and they started fighting pretty immediately, and the country basically split between them. And eventually, Carloman died of a disease, which was probably not a disease at all.
He was probably murdered by his brother.
Probably yes.
Yeah.